This is what I call the part that really excites me, because as I mentioned, on our panel today we have 4 young Winnipeggers who are going to tell us their story. Leaders. These are people here that are going to tell us exactly what they've been doing in their communities. And in a moment we'll invite them here on stage formally. Each one of them has been working in different ways. Some of them volunteer their time, some of them are with organizations, some of them were mentored and now have turned into mentors themselves. All of them inspire us and ignite these kinds of conversations that we're talking about across the country. So let's begin by meeting our 4 young Winnipeggers. First up is Erica Daniels. Erica Daniels is the winner of the 2013 Manitoba Aboriginal Achievement Award in Creative Arts, as well as the City of Winnipeg 2012 Youth Role Model Award in Creative Arts. She's currently the Technical Assistant and Youth Facilitator for the Just TV project. That is an outreach project at the Broadway Neighborhood Center, which is part of our city's core. She now owns and operates her own production company. Let's leave the auditorium for a moment and take you into Erica's neighborhood.
It's okay, you're
I grew up very disconnected from my culture. I didn't really know about the history of Indigenous people and where I came from.
Roll it around.
And I always kind of felt a little bit ashamed of who I was, because all you see are the negative stereotypes.
Right on the poles, yeah, right on the poles.
As a young teen in high school, I went through a lot of the struggles with drugs and alcohol. One of my teachers, she invited me to a community cleanup at the Broadway Neighborhood Center. They had a group of young Aboriginal men performing on a stage. Seeing young people who looked like me doing something so courageous like that, it just really inspired me. When I was 16, I attended my first ceremony, and that's when I started learning more about the history of Indigenous people. I started learning from the elders, and that really started building my pride in who I was. I worked my way up to being a mentor. I am now an employee at the Broadway Neighborhood Center. Okay, guys, let's do this. Oh, I absolutely love working with these young people. I see myself when I look at them. I went through a lot of the struggles that they're going through.
But I have something to say first.
With the young Aboriginal people that come through those doors. Have you ever been to the sacred site? When I start telling them about the different things that I've seen through ceremony, I feel like I belong somewhere. Like, you could just see their eyes light up. Yeah, like they don't know anything about their culture. There's so much energy on that land. It gives me pride in knowing that I could help change the lives of these young people. It just amazes me how much our people are working to change the future for our next generation. And that really inspires me to want to work harder to help our community rise. I want to be a voice to be able to change the future for our next generations.
You're on your way to making that change, I tell you. Everyone, Erica Daniels.
Nous avons tout un panel.
We have a whole panel. You see, you're going to clap a lot today. Our next guest comes from Congo. He grew up in a musician's family in a small town called Bukavu. It's not a surprise that Trésor Namwira became a hip-hop artist. When he immigrated to Winnipeg with his family only 4 years ago, he gave himself the mission to inspire harmony, unity, and diversity through his own musical style. His songs talk about current subjects and sometimes some issues like drugs and bullying. I would invite you to listen to this video, which will tell us more about Trésor.
Mon nom, c'est Trésor Namwira. La vidéo Winnipeg City, c'est en fait un hommage à Winnipeg City parce que j'ai trouvé ma vie, mon amoureuse, et je vais faire ma vie ici.
Jibu, tell me what you want to write.
En 2011, j'ai réalisé ici au Manitoba qu'il y avait un besoin d'encadrement de la jeunesse pendant la période d'été.
Is everybody ready?
On a créé un programme avec l'entreprise éducative culturelle Namura Fox.
Alors, on commence par Just Be.
I feel like every time I close my eyes, all I see is fame.
Et ça leur aide à produire leur propre musique, celle qu'ils ont toujours rêvé à faire.
As a method to send messages to children.
Ça leur aide à avoir la confiance en soi.
You got a dream?
Pour créer quelque chose, je voulais juste initier l'esprit de création dans ces jeunes-là. L'idée, c'est de produire un album.
Just don't quit, you gotta try harder.
Une partie va aller aider les orphelins en Afrique et une partie va soutenir encore leur carrière musicale. Je viens d'une famille qui a traversé beaucoup des épreuves et je connais un besoin qu'on a, c'est le besoin de l'éducation. Je vais lancer un deuxième album, travailler avec mes sœurs. La partie de cet argent va contribuer toujours pour la formation de cette jeunesse qu'on est en train d'encadrer, mais aussi à la jeunesse en Afrique pour qu'ils continuent toujours leurs études.
Okay, voilà.
C'est juste une façon d'unir les gens, essayer de vivre ensemble, essayer de promouvoir les talents qu'on peut trouver, essayer d'aider si on peut, essayer de comprendre d'autres cultures et aimer ton prochain comme tu t'aimes toi-même. Voilà.
Bravo les filles, bravo, bravo, bravo.
Mesdames et messieurs, c'est donc Trésor Namuira.
Our next panelist is someone I met in a cold Winnipeg morning. I said, can you meet me a couple blocks from here at the U of W? There's been a young girl who was sexually assaulted on a playground. It was just a horrific story for our city, and Jamil said, absolutely, because we have to do better. And boy, has he been part of doing better. Jamil Mahmood was born and raised here in Winnipeg. He enrolled in the International Development Program here at the U of W. Now that led him to work with the landless people of Pakistan. He also has worked with street kids in Ecuador. But with Jamil's credentials, even though he could work anywhere in the world, he works here in his hometown. His Spence community, as I've mentioned, is just a few blocks from our campus today at the University of Winnipeg. Let's go there now.
Our community is vibrant. It's dynamic. It's very diverse. Nice. While it has its challenges, I think it has more opportunities than it does challenges. It's the best community in the city. Maybe I'm a little biased, but living in a lower income community, you can be very isolating. If you have to work 2 jobs, 3 jobs to make ends meet, support your family. So we work really hard on having a lot of community events where people can come and bring their whole family, and just the simple things of opening up a space and making it friendly and inviting and giving people food and opportunity to connect and share.
Busy?
I'm always busy.
Seeing the community growing through this opportunity to just engage and have positive relationships in their neighborhood.
She's the best.
The thing that I always love is that you give people even the tiniest opportunities and they make the best of it. We have a kids garden behind the rec center.
Which is your favorite garden bed?
We started just showing kids how to grow vegetables.
Tomatoes.
Within a season or 2,
Oh, I see some.
we were seeing kids bringing in lettuce to the program and saying, let's have salad today.
These are onions.
We have a garage that we run a tool lending library out of. Kasha Koza, who's a local graffiti artist. He's going to mentor youth to do their own panels on the garage. So the youth will develop those skills, but also be able to express themselves in our community.
To me, this guy has opened his heart to the community, and he's opened his heart to the people, and he's for the people. He's becoming a great community leader.
Yeah, good seeing you.
Well, it's like watching a plant grow, right? You plant a seed and you water it, you put all your energy and love into it.
Eat it, it's good.
Yeah. And then you see it blossom into a recreation center full of kids, or new housing projects, or a new community space, a new park, right? But just being a part of that is a huge thing to be proud of.
Il me fait maintenant très plaisir.
It's now my huge pleasure to introduce you a former colleague from CBC. She's a Métis Franco-Manitoban. Her name is Janelle Wookie. Her multicultural roots explain in part her documentarist passion. Born and raised in the Canadian prairies, she makes movies with her brother since she's very young. Let's learn a little more about her work.
Je pense que le tout pour moi a commencé quand j'étais jeune. J'ai toujours adoré être devant la caméra. Moi et mon frère, on jouait avec la caméra de notre père.
He's Michael Moore.
Mon amour pour le documentaire a commencé avec le film Bowling for Columbine. Ça m'a frappé comme wow! C'est un film qui est divertissant, qui est intéressant, qui m'informe sur quelque chose d'important. J'ai fait des études postsecondaires à Red River College dans le programme Creative Communications, qui est un programme de journalisme. J'ai choisi de produire un documentaire sur ma mère et sur son héritage métis et le fait qu'elle n'en était pas fière, elle l'avait caché. Et puis c'est vraiment ce qui a marqué le début de ma carrière. Alors dans le film, c'est moi qui est en train de mener ma mère vers son identité métisse. En arrière-scène, ce qui se passait vraiment, c'est que moi aussi, j'étais juste en train de découvrir moi-même ma propre identité métisse.
That's the worst flood I ever seen.
Alors le premier film qu'on a coproduit comme producteur indépendant avec Wookie Films, c'était le film Treading Water.
We don't know when we're going to go home or where home is going to be.
Pour nous, c'était vraiment important de leur donner une voix parce que l'histoire avait été tellement compliquée dans les médias. Une des choses qui me passionne le plus dans le documentaire, c'est l'occasion de clarifier certaines choses qui sont peut-être moins claires avec le public.
Who in this class has a relative that has a amputated leg?
2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Surtout quand ça vient à des issues qui ont affaire avec les populations autochtones du Canada. Puis quand les gens ils viennent après un screening puis ils disent « Ah, j'avais entendu parler de cette histoire-là, mais j'avais aucune idée que... » Ça, pour moi, c'est le vrai trésor.
Now at CBC and Radio-Canada, we also have a lot of talent who are involved also in their own communities, and whether that comes through their involvement in programming or engagement at community events, or just through social media, which that's a huge area, of course. A couple of them are going to join us on our panel this afternoon as well and tell us how they've been involved.
Exactly, Marcy, because we have two special guests. Nous avons deux invités spéciaux aujourd'hui.
We have two special guests today, and we start with the first one. For 8 years already, he's played the part of Oli in the popular show called Les Parents, broadcasting on ICI Radio-Canada today. On top of being also associated to several causes, he co-developed and animated a documentary series called Raphaël Citoyen du Monde, where he met young francophones who are engaged in their community or abroad in the hopes of building a better world. Please welcome Raphaël Grenier-Benoit.
Also, please welcome to this stage the host of CBC Radio 2's Weekend Morning Show and CBC Television's weekly show, CBC Music Backstage Pass. Talia Schlanger has hosted the quietest concert ever as well on Fundy's Ocean Floor featuring Serena Ryder. It was an amazing show. I tuned in just this past week. I was so envious. A concert on an ocean floor. We'll hear more about that and how that inspired. Talia has been very involved in the music scene and has seen firsthand the power and the importance of community involvement and music when it comes especially to igniting and empowering. We've been using those words with our youth. We'll talk about that with her as well. From coast to coast, she's met young people, and she's here today. Talia. So we're going to begin our discussion, and I kind of want to go back to the start, to you, Erica, if that's okay. Now, I know that in your video, part of what you said was that you went to this event and you, for the first time, saw yourself in some of these other people as a young woman. Yes. Why did that matter, seeing yourself in someone else? Like, what did that do for you?
Well, I grew up with a lot of challenges, as well as a lot of the youth that we work with, very similar stories, and I don't know, like, it brings me a lot of pride to be able to work with young people who went through a lot of the same struggles as myself. And yeah, it just encourages me to help them and, you know, hopefully make an impact on their lives as well.
We hear a lot about people being closer to their culture and that helping people. You said, I think it helped you through a difficult time in your own life.
Yeah, like I said in the video, like I grew up very disconnected and I didn't know really my true identity as an Indigenous person. And I feel like that's a struggle for a lot of our young people these days, is not understanding where they come from and who they are, and understanding how beautiful of a culture we really have. And that's one of my goals, is to do whatever I can to introduce our young people back to their culture and back to their identity as First Nations people.
Trésor, je vais m'adresser maintenant à vous. Eric.
Trésor, I'm gonna talk to you now. Erika took her own culture, but you adopted a culture pretty quickly, in 4 years only. So what inspired you in your community? Well, I always said that I realized that Canada was an immigrant country. And why? Because I realized that we all come from somewhere. Nobody can say that I am a Canadian. But what inspired me is that even though we all come from somewhere else, we all have the Canadian ideal. I see unity in the diversity, and this is a strength. And I would like to live this way my whole life. This is what inspired me when I came to Manitoba. Not only live like that, but you quickly became a mentor for youth here in the community, and this is important, right? Yes, but you know that tomorrow's future lies in the youth of today. So we have to manage this youth to have better results in the future. So there's young people that are more interested in business, others are interested in music. So how to do to become a doctor? We still have to study, and you have to learn how to become a doctor. But there's youth now that are interested in music and that want also to bring their music and make it a career. I've had the chance to have a lot of mentorship through Son. Here in Manitoba, they always organize something to elevate us. But in another way, I find that all the things that I learn one way or another can be useful for the youth, especially young people my age or even people younger than me, to go even farther, because we want to see success in this youth.
Talking about finding inspiration here and inspiring in this country, seeing sort of an open door to being able to speak with young people. And we started, Jamil, by saying that you could have left, but you stayed here too. Why didn't you go, to follow your studies and work with young people around the world?
Yeah, I fully intended to go back and work overseas, but having started working in the community and building connections in the neighborhood, I realized that a lot of the same issues that exist in developing nations existed in my own backyard and in Winnipeg, in inner city specifically. And so the opportunity to make a difference and change our youth life in this city was really important to me, and that I invest myself here.
When do you know you're making that difference? When, as I said, you start by facing something as daunting, and in your case it was in that neighborhood, as a kid who was hurt on a playground, and people were moving out of that Winnipeg neighborhood at that time saying, it's not safe for my kids, and you said we can make it safe here. But when do you know you're making that difference?
I mean, the work we do is about connecting residents together and building their vision in their neighborhoods. So for me, the difference is seeing the resilience grow in our community, knowing how strong people are, knowing that we have a lot of issues in Canada. We have poverty, we have effects of colonization, we have broken structures, systemic violence. We have all these things that people wake up and have to deal with every day. And knowing that you can give a kid an opportunity to play sports or get into art or have a meal in a safe place to go, and that could change their whole life and give them an opportunity to make a difference for our whole city is how you know you're making a difference.
Why don't you tell everybody what you've done most recently? I'm bragging now for you. You got like a 24-hour youth drop-in because so many kids had nowhere to go in the middle of the night.
Yeah, it's not open yet. We're still fighting for the funding right now, but yeah, we hope by December we have a fully functioning 24-hour drop-in the west end of Winnipeg. So.
Wow.
Marcy, c'est à mon tour d'encourager.
Marcy, it's my turn to encourage my colleagues here. So, colleagues, you chose documentaries. Basically, you're explaining stories from here to people from elsewhere, but is that also community engagement? Yes. For me, as Franco-Métis, I'm part of a very small, unique group, so, being able to boast about my community to the rest of the country, it's very important for me. And it's also an asset for my community.
To sort of debunk some of the myths that exist in our community. J'aime parler d'histoire.
I like to speak about the history of Métis, but also francophones outside of Quebec. So for me, it's good for my community, but also the rest of the country. And that started with your grandmother that we saw in the video. That was your grandmother. And at the same time, you were looking for what was going on. Yes, it was a rather interesting trip. We went through Métis about 10 years ago. So my grandmother is over there. And she's crying.
And what was so great about it was quand le produit est sorti.
When the product came out.
Right now. Quand le produit est sorti.
When the product came out.
Pour moi et pour mon frère, c'était.
For me and my brother, it was be able to say.
Elle a regardé le film, puis là, elle est en train de finalement.
My grandmother watched this. Her identity is there, Métis identity.
About her Ukrainian heritage, and that was never something we talked about before. So that contribution to my community is something that is very important to me.
Bonjour, mes mères.
Hello, ma mère.
Hello, mes mères. Hello, Granny.
Besides really cool concerts on ocean floors, which I'm going to ask you about later anyway, what do you think the role of a public broadcaster is in bringing communities together?
That is our role, really. I mean, we live in the second biggest country in the world, and it takes a public broadcaster with a lot of heart and a lot of attention from coast to coast to coast to bring people together in a way that's meaningful and that creates community across our country. It's a great privilege to be part of it. And I work in the music department, and one of the biggest joys that we have is discovering music from different regions and artists that you wouldn't otherwise hear. So we've done for the past few years the Searchlight competition, for example, where we look for Canada's best new artist, and we do it region by region and then bring those finalists to national focus. So you've got an electro-pop duo from Iqaluit and a death metal band from Vancouver, artists that you would otherwise never hear of coming together through music. And one of the most remarkable things that we've seen through that in terms of community is that some of these artists have reached out to each other through this online competition that we ran and offered couch surfing when each other are on tour and resources and meals. And that's really, it's fun and it's in the spirit of fun, but really that's what our public broadcaster ought to be doing, bringing people together so that they can bring the best of themselves forward and to each other. And I do look forward to telling you about how that happened in the Bay of Fundy with the amazing people of Alma, New Brunswick. Yeah.
Why music, do you think? Is music in a different place now because we consume it whatever we want, whenever we want, and it has that power in a different way, maybe? Because I also noticed, not just with your work, but on our panel, I think Just TV does music videos, and Tresor, of course, music. So what do you think it is about music today that has power that we should continue to try to harness?
I think it's always had that sort of power. It's a cliche, but it's true that music is a universal language. And actually, Jamil and I were talking earlier, and I think that the way that you employ music is so phenomenal. Jamil was telling me, and he can probably put it better than I can, but the gist of it is that youth in the correctional center are given guitar and piano lessons. And then when they leave, they continue to get those guitar and piano lessons. So it's that sort of link between this institutionalized world and the outside. Have I done justice to what you guys do?
That's it. It's called Music at the Merc.
What's it called? Sorry, I missed
Music at the Merc.
Music at the Merc.
Which is the rec center down the road from here, so.
It's funny because what often comes back with young people, you talk about music, videos. Raphael, you're an actor and you co-developed a documentary. How did you get into that? Well, I co-developed a documentary series that put the emphasis on humanitarian aid done by young youth, either in their communities or abroad. And I met the producers and the parents, and we'd like to have a program with you. What would you like to do? And that was the greatest present I could have been given. So I think what's important for me in that program is to put in the spotlight what's done by youth that's positive. Because we hear, young people today, they don't do anything, they're lazy, they're disconnected, they're not interested, blah, blah. And I feel like just yelling out loud and breaking stuff. And I speak to people around me, and it's the same sound from everybody. So we have to give those young people a voice so that they can help create a better world and not become cynical, not give in to the cynicism around them. And I would ask the young people around me, do you think that what you're doing is helping people that you want to help, or does it help you more? And the answers were sort of half and half, but people would say at the end of the day, would say, I do this because it changes me and it's good for me. So if it gave youngsters the will to get involved, etc., I mean, it's not that hard to have an impact. I get the impression that, people who see the big picture, there's people who came from Saguenay that were in Africa, out in the fields there, and they're working with the young people there to try to prevent malnutrition. And I'm saying, look, these guys, they have doctorates, they have university degrees, and they're here doing this. So I figure, yeah, if we identify with them, we can see that we can make a difference. And really, for me, that's the message I get from that experience. And did that change you? Well, yeah. That's why I often say that program for me was a discovery professionally, but also humanly. I learned how to host, how to co-host. I had the process of developing the program. Professionally, I learned a lot, but on the human level, if it's just to see what reality is being, when you're a foreigner or a stranger, you show up in Africa or you show up in South America and they call you, hey, whitey. So, it's that experience, meeting all those people. I was optimistic for youth and all that, but I'm even more optimistic now.
In terms of your ages now and at what ages you started to really get involved in your communities. And it's very interesting because it was all around the same age, late teens or early 20s. And it is an age where you could completely do the opposite. Disconnect, say it's all about me, I'm finally out the house, off I go. Yet all of you decided, no, we're going to somehow give back, I can't not do this. And I just want to go down the line. Is that because you saw the need for something, or what is it that made you say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to devote a lot of my time to this because it's worth it?
Well, for me, it was the program that I was involved with at the Broadway Neighborhood Center, and it was the staff that really made an impact on my life and the choices that I was making. So that's what kind of pushed me, like, no matter how far I went down the wrong path, it was always those people that were there to pick me up again and bring me back. And so that's kind of why I do what I do, is because I seen what they did for me, and that's what I want to do for my community.
Well, for me, I realized that I was inspired by my father because my father was a CEO in a business, a center for recovering street kids, and I had the opportunity to see what was going on there, and I figured the best way to work in my life was to serve youth and serve others because I like it. And what he was doing, he would go into the street where the kids were smoking all kinds of, and doing stuff that happens with street kids, and he tried to get those children to the center, and after that bring those kids back and get them to go back to school and give them an opportunity to live a better life. And when I got to Manitoba, I realized that there's huge potential with youth, but it's as though we don't see it. In one way or another, we just see, kids that are distracted. They're there just for music, to have fun, as you said. But no, it's false. It's not that at all. And when I started working with young kids, I noticed that these are people who want things, who have dreams that they want to achieve. Well, Trésor, you said there was a model from your family, your father, and I was curious to know, the others, do you have a model from your family that was also committed with the community, or did this just come from yourselves and inside yourselves? Trésor, go ahead. What inspired me to get out there with the community, I come from an exogamous family. It's popular. It means I have one parent Anglophone, the other one Francophone. So, and during my life, I discovered I was a Métis. So, I had a foot here and a foot there and the other foot somewhere else. So, for me...
About all these other groups, because I was like sort of in all of them, and I could see the misconceptions that existed about other people, other groups. So that's kind of what drove me to become a documentary filmmaker,
because what is really my passion and motivation is to debunk myths that exist about Francophone communities or Métis communities. And when I hear people saying about an issue, talking about an issue,
something wrong, it like makes me insane, and c'est ce qui me passionne. I'm like,
and that's my passion.
So many stories that we've done have been stories that have appeared in the media over the course of months, sometimes years. And they're distributed to the public in an article and another article the next week and a 2-minute news story here. And to me, putting it all together and then explaining it to people in a way they can understand it, c'est ce qui me motive comme docteur.
And that's what really motivates me when...
J'avais entendu parler de cette...
I'd heard about that story, but I never understood
what had really happened and who was the real victim and who were the players in that. So thank you. So c'est ce qui me motive.
So that's what motivates me.
Yeah, they're here, so I can't say too much about.
Jamil, what is your greatest wish, your biggest dream for your community?
Oh, how can you have one? There's so many. For me, like everything we do at Spence and in my community and all my staff is we take the vision from the neighborhood and we make it happen. So my vision, Spence is the best neighborhood in the city. It's so vibrant, it's so diverse, and my vision is that it keeps growing and we're able to develop our neighborhood without displacing our current residents and meet the needs. We have high levels of poverty and we have gang problems and we have a lot of issues, but those are all things that can be addressed if we work with community and build strong foundation.
Mm-hmm. Maybe we have time to come back to Talia. Elle parlait d'un concert.
Oh,
she was talking about a concert.
J'ai pas oublié, là.
Yes, so this...
Yeah, I hadn't forgotten it.
Serena Ryder, we should come back there and share for people that wonderful show on CBC. But the community event of it, the value of it when you were there, maybe set it up for us. The Bay of Fundy, right?
Sure, yeah, I think that was the coolest part. So the Bay of Fundy, if you haven't been there before, it's home to the highest tides in the world. At right around this time of year, they go out incredibly far, twice a day, so like the length of 2 football fields, and expose the ocean floor. And a sort of wild genius in our department, Kai Black, came up with the idea of building a stage when the tide went out and throwing a concert on the ocean floor. Simple, very simple undertaking. And Serena Ryder was crazy enough and her band to be up to the task and do it. But the amazing thing was, logistically, what this required us to do was helicopter a stage down the side of a cliff. And we were going into Alma, New Brunswick. Most of us from my department are based in Toronto. And Alma's a tiny place, a couple hundred people, 3 restaurants, a couple of motels that we completely overbooked by being there. And yet we got there, and the entire community was so enthusiastic to take part and make this happen and show their slice of Canada to the rest of the country. And the support that we felt from them, even from our local CBC Moncton crew, the fact that we all came together and pulled this thing off, it was just an amazing moment of community and sharing the beauty of our country with each other. And it was really fun that it aired this past Friday night, and a bunch of the people that we worked with in Alma, including the Parks Canada staff and even the hotel, like the motel staff that we had worked with, watched it together at the same time and were tweeting about it together online. So our hashtag was trending because we were all engaging with each other about this experience that we have had, halfway across, well, on the other coast, far away from us. So, and it's stuff like that. It was just such a beautiful slice of Canadiana, and makes me so proud to be part of a public broadcaster that can bring people together like that. It just for pure positivity, like pure celebration of our geography and our talent and the heart of the people who work here.
We have a big beach here. In Manitoba.
We can co-host. Maybe we'll come there next. We need a big raft.
C'est vraiment impressionnant.
It's really impressive, and I wonder, I mean, you've all done great stuff, so how can we encourage other young people to do the same thing that you did, just jump into it? And you've met all kinds of people. Raphael, how can we continue with this sort of wave of commitment? I think it goes through two things. First of all, you work through example. When I see people who actually fight for their ideals, their values, who have an impact, that inspires me. And that's why actually I worked on a series of documentaries. That I want to have that impact. I want to be able to say that what I did encouraged others to do something that they wanted to do. But I think it's also, you have to be encouraged. I mean, we were talking about parents before. Well, if I could summarize, I could maybe say that my parents, the way they influenced me, was ever since I'm young, I'm little. Anytime I wanted to do something or I was interested in something, the answer was, nothing is impossible. You want to do it, do it. And the only limits you have are the limits you put on yourself. So basically, and I'm not trying to be pretentious or anything here, it's just that if you don't know how it can work, I mean, you have to try it. So I think that's how that we can encourage young people to have an impact. It's to show them, one, that it's feasible, and number two, that they can do it. Yes, nothing is impossible. Beach concert, bingo.
What you do, and what all of our panelists, and I'm very honored to sit up here with you, what you do is really help people share their stories. And I think that's one of the biggest parts of it, is that when young people, young or old people, are able to share their stories, it legitimizes experience and brings people together, because everyone does have a story that is untold, and there's always more than meets the eye. And it's just so amazing that each of you help people share their stories and therefore feel part of something and valid and valued. That's what we do in media too. Sometimes we don't have enough time to do those stories justice, but even the simple act of asking a question or being there with somebody or finding out their story on the small scale to the big screen is really what it's about.
And probably critical. Thank you all for giving us those access points today. It can feel overwhelming how to make those differences. That's sort of where we started with some of our opening questions. But here we've heard today, through mentorship, through art, through volunteering, through music, through all kinds of different ways in real differences being made. So that does wrap up the part of our presentations this morning, our youth panel. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences with us.